Story of how a party for one became a party for all. This is the story of a great educational success in the 20th century. This is the story of the Marching 100 of St. Augustine High School. Beginning in 1954, with the Topeka versus Brown Supreme Court ruling, striking down separate but equal, the battle for open access for all of American citizens focused on elementary education. In New Orleans, the effort to desegregate public education was sometimes characterized by hateful opposition from proponents of racial segregation. Unlike southern cities, New Orleans was predominantly Catholic and actually had a parallel public and parochial school system. The Josephite Society decided to join the battle to provide quality education to blacks in New Orleans. Josephite priests and brothers accepted the responsibility of running St. Augustine.
The school was part of a youth progress program sponsored by the Archdiocese under Archbishop Rummel. And at the time that they started this, the Youth Progress Program had spearheaded a fundraising drive for the establishment of two schools, a boys' high school for whites, boys' high school for blacks. As you may well know, the state had segregated laws for schools, so it was quite natural that we would start off with a school completely for blacks and a school completely for whites. But that, in a sense, worked to our advantage in educating the young blacks. We were able to speak to the issues in their lives without having to attenuate them by issues in the lives of white kids. We knew what the issues were. We were working in black parishes, and we were able to address ourselves to the needs, educational, psychological, and what have you, for a young teenager, but more specifically for a young black teenager.
The vision which we had was, it was 1951, and 1960 was not that far off. And as we spoke to these young men, time and time again, we would remind them that they were going to be the leaders of the future, that their parents had lived in a segregated society, but by the time that they finished college, they would be in a society which was going to be integrated, and they would have to assume positions of leadership. Now, we try to motivate the young men in that respect, that they were given talents by God, and those talents should be directed and developed, not only for themselves, but for what the future would hold for the black community. So there was that vision immediately that was present at St. Aug, and I would say that that was part of the approach that I used as principal, and that many of the teachers who were teaching in the classrooms also brought home to the young men, that they had this opportunity, they were going to be leaders, and it turned out they were, and many did become leaders.
We started off with only a freshman class because we wanted anybody to be there to be subjected to our whole program. We didn't want to take people in who had already had expectations and skills which would not measure up to what we wanted. So we started with a 9th grade class at that time, Later on, we started with an 8th grade class. The men on the faculty all were assigned to a parish. We were assigned to a parish before the school opened. I was ordained in '49, so for 2 years I went to Loyola University, got my degree in teaching mathematics. While I was in the parish, I was in charge of the youth programs, which were terribly frustrating, and I think it gave me some of the momentum that I needed and that motivated me in how I was going to handle my job teaching in high school. I had absolutely no influence whatsoever on the kids in the parish. I was a small part of their weekly occupation, and they were too busy playing basketball to pay any attention to anything I had to say. So that gave me a lot of ideas as to the value of a school such as St. Augustine's High School.
I was sent to St. Augustine. It was a new school that was to open in the fall of '51, and I was sent there by Sister Elise. She was the head of the department at Xavier University, and I had done my student teaching. I started at Holy Ghost School, and I went for the remainder of the year at Xavier Prep because the band director left. So Sister Elise wrote me a letter and sent me down to talk to Father O'Rourke about taking a part-time job at St. Augustine High School in my senior year. And that's how I got there.
When we began at St. Aug in our first year, some of the students were musicians, and the principal wanted to have a band. So there was a young man, his name was Reynold Richards. He would come over and teach us a band class once a day. It's usually in the afternoon. And it wasn't really an organized band or anything, but it was just an opportunity for us to get together and play. I think it was in my sophomore year, Mr. Hampton came, and things began to change. He continued the same thing that Mr. Richards started, but he started to organize the band. And he put out a call for students who wanted to play. He would be willing to help them, to teach them how to play, and so on. We started to get this little nucleus which became known as a band. The band just continued to flourish, and the athletic teams were playing. We had football, we had basketball, and so on. And of course, since they had football, we wanted to have a band that would go on the field for the football games. And so Mr. Hampton worked towards that end. Of course, now we know that the school has, maybe 150 kids on the field at the time, but at that time, we had maybe 20, maybe 30. I think when I graduated, I think we were up to 30-something.
The year that I came back from the service, '62, I think the band went to 100 pieces. That was really stretching a point. But a 100-piece band was just a high school band, was something that was a real landmark.
It seemed to really begin to take off, as I remember, when Hamp expanded the size of the band and began to do the intricate marching and so forth. They were doing something that only a few of the big college bands were pulling off, and they were really they were unique in the city. There just wasn't anything else in the city that can compare to it.
And we recognized in there that there was something endearing about military discipline. So we tried to instill this in the kids. A marching band is really a takeoff from the military unit. So we wanted that aspect to be a major part of our playing. After all, playing music requires a lot of discipline in itself. But the marching aspect of it was just an extension of that whole thing. So we tried, our band camps reflected that. And everything we did was based on a kind of military awareness. And we tried to instill that in the kids, and I think that it carried on.
From the very beginning, Hamp had the vision that this marching band was going to be a band that was highly trained, and where you'd have the order of military precision. Hamp didn't stand still. He went to workshops, and in the summertime he did reading. He had discussions with people who were involved in working with the large school bands, and he, as a result, he was growing on the job also. But he saw. I would give this to the credit here to Hampton himself totally, because he wanted a precision military type of operation, and that's what he got. That's what St. Aug became known for. And when St. Aug's band came marching down the street, everybody took notice. And when St. Aug's band was on the football field, everybody stopped and looked and enjoyed what they were seeing.
It was just an exciting time, and Mr. Hampton had brought the style of marching that is the 8-to-5 concept of marching, and the patterns in motion, I think he referred to it, as opposed to just getting out on the field and making a figure, and that was it. When I was in the band in the first years, our band halftime shows were basically that. That was really what was going on at the time when the band was in its infancy, first years. We would march onto the field, and we would form the shape of a stick man or something like that. You know, that was the norm. But when we came back from college and got back into it, Mr. Hampton had gone to some summer camps in dealing with bands, and he had a different style that he wanted to bring down here. He saw it and he liked it, and it was referred to, I think it was referred to as patterns in motion, whereby we wouldn't just get out there and form a figure, but we would constantly move, and you would see different patterns on the field, and it was very exciting. The people really were excited about it. And you really got the real concept of it. You could really see it when you were in a place like Wall City Park now, or in Superdome. In the early years, we had our football games were at Xavier University. They used to have a field. Dillard University had a field. That was the places we played. But after that, and when the band started getting into this different routine, it became more visual, and everybody could see what was going on and see those patterns, and it was very, very exciting.
The St. Augustine Band became famous as a marching band for parades and as a halftime band for high school football games.
The blinky thing in Men in Black wouldn't let you forget how good our Negro is.
They were also an excellent concert band that performed everything from Broadway show tunes and jazz to religious and classical music. The band developed following the vision of an extraordinary gifted man, Edwin Hampton.
Father Grant was the social studies teacher, and he and I often dialogued about band students electing out of social studies to go to music classes. By and large, that was the time that we had to give the students music in lieu of going to social studies. Well, this went on for 2 or 3 years like that, and we were always debating about it. Well, on the night that Father Grant was appointed to be the principal, I had heard about it that day, and so I went over to the school, and I was sitting around in the hallway, and Father Grant walked by, and he looked at me, and he said, "Well, I guess you figure you're dead now, huh?" I said, "Yeah, you better believe it." He said, "Well, it's not going to be that way." He said, "When I was a teacher, I didn't realize the importance of music and all the other subjects in the school." And said, "Now as principal, said, we're going to succeed in everything." And from that day on, we really did that.
He arrived there the second year the school opened. And immediately there was respect for this guy, for his doggedness, his determination that he was going to be the best, and he's the best. And St. Aug's is the best. And he also is a man that I think has a great deal of compassion for the individual people. I think it's very significant that of all the teachers there, the one teacher that maintains friendships with his students far into the years, the one man who has that the most is Mr. Hampton. They develop a personal respect for him. They develop a personal gratitude to him and a love for him. No man has greater care or concern for his fellow human being than Edwin Harold Hampton. He came to St. Aug. He had no children. St. Aug became his children. The same argument we use for celibacy, that if you as a priest were married, you wouldn't have any time for your commitment because you'd be spending that time with your children. Well, that same thing held true by God's divine providence in Hampton's case. He had no children, so 800 kids become his children every year.
Every purple night to ever come to that band was Mr. Hampton.
It was a sort of semi-military type of thing because it was all men, and we had served in the military a few years prior to that time, and there was a lot of beauty in seeing troops move from point A to point B if it was done with style and with precision. So we just decided to try to choreograph the two together, the motion and the music, and to play music that was recognized by the generations that we were dealing with at that time. Even though it turned out to be a thing of beauty, it wasn't designed primarily as a thing of beauty, but as a matter of strategy. How do you move 100 men through a certain area without one running over the other, and that type of thing. So there was strategy in the way that you do this. I just wanted to do something exciting and something different. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
I think St. Aug's forte is consistency. You know, if one thing separates us from everybody else is you know, year after year, that consistently a band that we can be proud of will show up.
Here's a band that's going to go on the field. We're going to go into a parade, marching. There's going to be knee bend. There's going to be toe pointing. There's going to be pride.
It's sort of like being on a sports team. Everybody has their, each instrument or each individual has their role to play. And it's sort of like doing your thing to bring it all together and to make it work.
There's a high standard. It's not acceptable to make mistakes. It's not acceptable to have less than a level knee bend. And it's not acceptable not to be, you know, a competitive musician capable of holding your own in a band.
Take a bunch of raw recruits, students, potential band members. You teach them 8 to 5 and, you know, 6 to 5, these kind of steps. You're teaching them progressions. You're teaching them to march down the field and turn on music cues instead of turning at the goalposts and using landmarks in the field.
It all goes back to pride. It goes back to commitment. It goes back to maintaining standards. We realized that we had to do all of that. We realized that everything was expected of us. Okay? We were here to continue what had been started years ago.
As a band director, he expects, he demands a committed musician. He's willing to teach you everything that he knows about music if you're willing to take the time and learn.
I think bands, by and large, was something that people put in between the halves at a football game to take up some space, and nobody really paid any attention to it. So that's when we started out to try to put some entertainment in the business, play some music that would be recognized by the audience in general, and some music that the average musician would enjoy playing.
The first major social battle the band fought was to change the way the Zulu Mardi Gras crew held their parade.
The only thing that black folks were involved in were the Zulu parade, which at that time was a disgrace. It catered to the white man's stereotype that black folks are irresponsible, they're drunkards, and isn't it funny how irresponsible our little darkies are? And that was their attitude. So much so that the Chamber of Commerce gave them $2,000 every year to help with that parade. But we got involved with that too, asking for a more dignified parade. And part of the quid pro quo was the fact that St. Aug would march with the Zulu parade, provided they started introducing something that was not a disgrace to the Zulus in Africa. Because up until then, we put an ad in the paper stating that blacks should boycott Mardi Gras, because the only involvement they had was as flambeau carriers, groveling for coins that white people threw at them in the street, groveling. Of course, I didn't criticize the young people who were doing it. They were hungry, they were poor, and it was a chance to earn some money. But I did resent the crews, Rex and all the others, that the only role black people had was groveling for money as flambeau carriers, and then being subsidized in the Zulu parade to give grave dishonor to the Zulu tribe in Africa.
You see, in the 60s, Zulu costumes were the same as they are in 98 and 99 and in the future. See, in the 60s, it was not fashionable to belong to Zulu. It was not fashionable to paint your face black and to wear a grass skirt. That's a tradition of Zulu. And we will never change that. We will never change that tradition. We're the only Mardi Gras organization that doesn't wear a fake mask. It's our actual face. We paint our faces black, and in the black community, this was not acceptable. I mean, we had just as many problems in the so-called black community as we had in the white community in surviving. I mean, we were individuals who weren't worth anything. Those were the people who caused problems in our community. They were laborers, and they were people who were not in a high echelon of society. But look at us today. Some of the people who protested against us parading in the 60s during the Civil Rights Movement are big members in our organization today. How times bring on a change.
Father McManus talked with me about it, and he got the idea to talk to some of our students about trying to stop some of the things that Zulu was doing at the present time. Of course, Zulu did not have a route for carnival. What they would do is they would post signs on various barrooms around town that would say Zulu will pass this bar on Carnival Day. And that custom, along with the throwing of coconuts and the painting of their faces, blackface and that type of thing, at that particular time, we were in disagreement with that. So we got a group of students and we went out and canvassed and gave out posters and things asking Zulu to try to go along with trying to improve their parade. And so this was the beginning of the movement that finally got us into the Zulu parade, because after a few years they decided to go along with some of those things that we had asked them. And so since they did that, we thought it was Christian-like to go and help them to improve their parade by going into the parade as a band.
After Zulu came a much more difficult task, integrating Mardi Gras itself. In the middle of the turbulent 60s, St. Augustine's Marching 100 became the first black band to play in the Rex Mardi Gras parade. Rex is considered the king of Mardi Gras.
It developed from a letter that Father Grant, who was a principal of St. Augustine, wrote to Mayor Vic Skiro and requesting his help, because Father Grant said he had seen bands in the parades, but their band had never been invited. So Scoop Kennedy, who had been a sports writer for one of the papers, who was then Vic Skiro's public relations man, wrote a letter to Darwin Fenner, who was the then captain of Rex, suggesting that we look into getting them in the next Rex parade. So that's what started it all, was a letter from Father Grant, who was the principal at St. Augustine.
His Majesty Rex hereby extends to the St. Augustine High School his official invitation to participate in the 1967 Rex Parade, which will be held on Tuesday, February 7th, 1967.
St. Augustine High School received your invitation to participate in the Rex Parade. We will participate. Sincerely yours, Reverend Robert H. Grant, SSJ, Principal.
It occurred to some of those white folks that had these crews that maybe it would be worthwhile having a black band play. If you want good music, you get St. Augustine. If you want second-rate music, you get some other white school, as they had been doing.
Oh, I think everybody felt it. It was a lot of anticipation, and we worked hard, very hard for it. And you have to understand the times, at that particular time when we went out there in the parade, we had a column of priests. At that particular time, we had a lot of Josephite priests on our faculty. And you remember they all were dressed in black at that particular time, with cassocks and the other clerical robes and all that. So we had priests on our ranks and in front of the band and then behind the band and whatnot as we marched through the streets of New Orleans. I can remember coming to Canal Street and St. Charles. I can remember a very elderly black lady, and this is the truth, that she got on her knees and thanked God in a way that everybody could hear what she was saying, that she had lived to see this day when a black band marched on Canal Street. But I think by and large that Canal Street and St. Charles were the easy ones now. You remember these parades in those days went through the French Quarter, and what you got on your head from the upper balconies was not champagne. We didn't stop to analyze it. We had told our kids to turn the other cheek and don't react to the crowd and keep going, and they did a good job on that.
It was a little scary, but I mean, even at that age, man, I realized the significance of something like that. People threw things at us. I mean, that was the scary thing about it. But, you know, my parents were very proud of that, because it was something that they, in their lifetime, that they had a chance to see. You know, because of the racism. And for me, it was so exciting just marching down, you know, in the quarters. Man, that was just unbelievable. Because the only other times that I have seen any blacks actually marching, participating in something like that, was during Mardi Gras. And it was like the Zulu parade or something like that, or the small traditional bands. So it was a great experience for me, you know, as a teenager to just be a part of something like that. It was incredible.
It was wonderful, because they did their job like they were touted to do, and we had, as far as I remember, we were complimented all over the place for the fact that it was an excellent band, and local band too.
I think I was on St. Charles Avenue when I saw them coming through, and it was a great experience. It made a lot of people proud, and seeing them march up the street, you know, with the drums thundering, it kind of reminded you of a military victory, and it became almost like something else. Like in New Orleans, of course, we have a way of transforming reality into our own realities. And I think for a lot of people in New Orleans, black and white, St. Aug marching up St. Charles Avenue, drums thundering, horns blazing, was like a victory march for civil rights.
And after a few years, I used to go into business establishments and I'd identify myself. And they said, St. Aug's band, my, they are great. They didn't know anything else about us academically, athletically, because we were never portrayed in the Times-Picayune. That's another discussion. But the first exposure they had to good music at a high school level was St. Aug's band. And we began to get a lot of respect in the community at large. And I think that was a tremendous force for goodwill.
And they heard the drum rolls, they heard the drums, they heard the cadences. And everybody, white, black, Oriental, Hispanic, it doesn't make a difference, the neighborhood is well integrated, all said, that's St. Aug. And when St. Aug passed, naturally, applause, applause, applause. And it was a wonderful experience, one that has been repeated many, many times since 1967. What a wonderful occasion to turn things around for the Carnival of New Orleans and add some color to the carnival.
As the years rolled on, the invitations poured in, including participation in NFL Super Bowl games. Appearances in Hollywood movies. And a special performance for Pope John Paul II. How did they become so good? Discipline, hard work, and the invaluable leadership of bandmaster Edwin Hampton.
Probably one of the most brutal experiences I've ever been in my life. It was boot camp, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a military environment, a lot of guys acting under military conditions, working in the sweltering heat of New Orleans, but a taskmaster being Mr. Hampton that was relentless. It's an experience that you only wanted to go through once in your life, but every year we endured that, and that made us what we were, that summer camp.
I remember the first day that I was there at band practice. It was scary. Scary, man, because I was in 8th grade, you know. So first of all, I'm there with all these upperclassmen, so that was kind of scary. And I remember we were outside, and it was hot. And there was another guy that I became really good friends with. His name was John Rochelle. And John was a trumpet player too, and Kip Lazard. We were all friends. We were all in the 8th grade in the same class. And I remember we had to stand at attention. And it was really hot. And all of a sudden you heard Hamp go, catch him, catch him, catch him. And I looked around and John had fell out because, you know, he hadn't put any liquids in his body and the heat was getting to him. And I'm thinking, man, this is what it takes to be in this band. You know, people falling out like flies. And it was a scary thing, man, but we all laughed about it later on.
If I had to do it again, 20 years from now, I'd do it again. It was an opportunity that you gain a camaraderie with your fellow bandmates. It taught you how to endure the pressures of life, the rigors of everyday work. It was an experience that said to be the best, you had to give up everything you had, everything you thought you had to become what you had to be. So in essence, it was one of the most invigorating experiences I've ever been through in my life.
Oh, 8 to 5, that's one of the greatest things that people try and copy but never successfully imitate. So the 22.5-inch step, and it's the foundation for some of the greatest field shows you ever want to see in history. And through the years, it's funny to see bands like 35, Kennedy, and all these other high school bands. They've tried to copy it, but they never did quite get it down. And I think what leads to that is that they don't have the band director that we have, who was the one who originated it. And when you don't have the root, you don't have anything. So he kind of broke 8 to 5 down to the seniors. And they broke it down to the rest of the band, and the rest is history. And you got some of the baddest field shows you ever want to see in your life, man. The Smoke, the Diagonals, Diamonds, some of the greatest field shows you ever want to see.
It wasn't so much the snapping down on the downbeats or that the drummers would accent, but it was the snapping up. You know, the snap and pop every time, you know, a beat was played. That's what made the difference. And then doing it together, so many young men coming from so many different walks of life, all being taught to do the same thing at the same time, is what made us unique.
The roster spots in the drum section was my first experience, I guess you could say, with supply and demand. There was only 20 drummers, there was only 20 drums. But at that time, there were maybe 200 people going out for those drums. And at that time, we were only taking the top of the line drummers from all over the city. And it was a big challenge to come here my freshman year, heart pumping, blood flowing, meet all the new guys from all the different schools in my 9th grade year, and all of us challenging from one of those drums. You can say that I was born to be a drummer at St. Augustine, because I would take a box from Thornhill's drugstore across the street and put a string on both ends and march up and down London Street while the band was playing, beating it with branches off a tree. I just wanted to be a drummer. That's how bad I wanted to play the drums at St. Augustine.
I was the shortest drummer in drum section. I was only 4'4", 4 feet 4 inches. So I had the nickname of Mouse, Mouse Senior. My younger brother was Mouse Junior. He played clarinet and was 4 feet. So, of course, the tall band members would look at me and say, how this little bitty guy is going to carry this thing? So the first time I marched on the field, I marched with the flapjack, the thing we used to turn. And they were just shocked and in awe that this little bitty guy was carrying this thing. And the first time I carried snare drum and marched and danced on the field, they were like, how can this little man do this? But my heart and soul was in being part of this Marching 100 from the jump, because being a member of Marching 100 and being a Purple Knight, it's like your heart becomes part of St. Augustine. And one has to come here to experience that and want to be part of the school. And even when you leave it, it still stays with you.
Oh, it wasn't just putting the uniform on. It was going through my neighborhood, parading it around on a hanger. All right, you know, when we got out of the car, I held it up to make sure everybody could see, you know. And then they said, oh, you made it. I was like, that's right. I'm bad. And then when I put it on, the first time I put that uniform on for a game, it was a ceremony. You know, I must have spent 20 minutes in the mirror.
All I ever wanted to do was go to St. Aug. And then once I got into St. Aug, I was able to get into the band. And once I got in the band, it was like I had really done it, you know. This was one of the goals I had, to be a member of the band, to be a real part of St. Aug. And St. Aug's band was something that everybody recognized, and it was like being a celebrity.
Well, everybody in New Orleans considered St. Aug's Marching 100 the best band, not only in New Orleans, but in the state or even in the South, you know, and some people even said in the country. And so, you know, it was always considered the model that other groups followed. We remembered all through my years at St. Aug, the things that we would do in terms of the songs we would play and in terms of the drills we would do during football games, or the steps we would do in parades. We would see other high school bands copying those things a week or two later. So St. Aug was like the model that other people tried to emulate.
Excellence. Excellence. This band taught me that whatever I decide to do in life, whether it be music or anything else, whatever I do, I have to be the best. I have to be the best. I have to strive to be the best. And in striving to be the best, I'm always going to be the best that I can be.
one of the best halftime shows we ever did was when Rummel, some people from when we were playing Rummel, I think in 1979, there was an article in the paper that St. Aug was only a dancing band. And we did this show, The Greatest of All, where we made the cross and we did the swirls on the corner of each cross. We didn't dance, we just marched, parallel knee band, stride step. And, you know, we had a standing ovation that week. Then the next week we came back and we did the dance show. And you know, we had the dance squad in the front. And we just had the ability to entertain. Whatever was needed, Mr. Hampton and staff had the genius to put that show together. And we went out. And people came to the games a lot of times just for the band.
I can remember back in 1976 when I was sitting in the room kind of practicing and not really taking it as serious as I should have. And Mr. Hampton, when he got his clarinet, and we played some clarinet duets, and he, at that time, told me, whenever I decide to play, no matter what it is, always take the utmost seriousness in what I was going to be doing at that time. If I wasn't going to play seriously, then don't play. Just go have fun and do whatever you're going to do. But when you sit down to play, sit down and be serious about playing at that particular time.
What Edwin Hampton meant to me was developed when he asked me to play trombone when I didn't think I could. And he saw something in me that he could develop and gave me a confidence in me that he needed me. This, you know, young, 15-year-old kid, Hampton, an accomplished musician, needed me to play in his band. I mean, that made me important.
I remember saying to him one night, I called him, and I said, Mr. Hamp, I don't know, I couldn't do this or that. I said, because I don't have, you know, parents like the other kids. You know, I don't have anyone else to speak up for me and different things. And he said, I remember him saying, he turned around, he said, I think it's a wonderful thing for you to speak for yourself. And I remember that hit me. I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. And that made me think more in line, I think, with the practice of what the school was about, and what the mindset that I think that Mr. Hamp was trying to transfer to the young men and to the students of the school.
Mr. Hampton is a very unique individual who, while I think he had many opportunities in life, sacrificed personally to develop youngsters. I mean, because when I went to St. Aug, I mean, I was a kid. And most people who step across the threshold when they get there, they're kids, and Mr. Hampton has that unique ability to take them as kids, respect them as kids, and make them think they're a man, treat them like a man, and more importantly, develop them to be very successful individuals. It's not just about music. He's the man. It's not just about his skills in music. He's the man who has the unique ability to take boys and make them men, and make them men that understand you have responsibilities, not just to your music, to your family, responsibilities to the world. It's a difficult challenge to define Mr. Hampton, but I think the terminology, he's the man, says it all, because I believe he's the man. Let me tell you, I don't say that about a lot of individuals, but he's the man.
He works feverishly. I mean, nothing else in his life matters other than that band, and I think that's the kind of dedication that it takes to maintain that level of excellence.
Discipline, brotherhood, excellence. The St. Augustine Marching 100 represents the best that New Orleans has to offer.
purple night. It's time for a salute to the man who gave it all he had at St. Augustine School. Go find a teacher, some kind of leader. He's our hero. He's the man. Purple night, purple night. It's time to give a hand to the St. Augustine marching band, the best in all the land. No finer marching, some kind of precision. No, here they come with the man, with the man. Let me take you back to the time of the marching band. See how they pick 'em up, they're the best in all the land. The pride on their faces says just where they belong. The man behind the purple nights has blessed us with a song. And whether we find a teacher who can do the things you do, for you have been the best through and through. From boys to men, you taught us what a family should be. Thank you for the vision and the dream. Purple night, purple night. It's time for a salute to the man who gave it all he had at St. Augustine School. A teacher's teacher, a leader's leader. He's our hero. Yes, the man. No one can do like you do. No one can teach the way you do. Watch him down the street, watch him down Bourbon Street, down the field and the wind. There's none compare. The one, the one. Purple and gold is marching with the man. The man. Purple and gold, purple and gold. Purple and gold is marching with the man. Here they come. Here they come, marching.